Assalamu alaikum everybody. Hello, my name is Nurulani Yazdani and I work as the Education USA advisor at the Lahore office. Thank you for tuning in at our session, PhD Applications Demystified. We have Daud Nosham, who is a current PhD student at University of Nebraska. He will be giving a detailed introduction when I hand it over to him. But before we officially start the session, for those of you who are new to USCFP and Education USA, I'd like to start by briefly introducing USCFP and EduUSA. All right. United States Educational Foundation in Pakistan, we're a binational commission with the governments of Pakistan and the United States. We offer personalized guidance to students who want to pursue their higher education in the US. For those of you here, I'm sure most of you would have heard about Fulbright. That's a flagship scholarship. You can read more about it at uscfp.org. In Pakistan, Education USA is housed within USCFP. We're part of US State Department. Whatever information you hear from us is from the US government directly, so it's accurate, current, and comprehensive. And as I mentioned earlier, we guide students in helping in finding their best fit, which can differ from, of course, from student to student. Just want to go over some services that we offer. We have a lot of in-house sessions. Just today, we had an open house where students who've registered with us could just walk in for a Q&A session with an advisor. We do GRE workshops around Fulbright season time, and we have a library which you're more than welcome to join, but you have to email us before you come if you want to access GRE materials, study materials, a computer. So you're more than welcome to join in. And our most famous service happens to be one-on-one advising, where you register on our website, educationusa.pk, and you're an assigned an advisor. You're more than welcome to work one-on-one with your advisor. All our services are completely free of charge. And if you have any questions after this, you can email us at the following email, lahore@educationusa.org. And I will hand it over to Daud, but before I hand it over to him, just please note that we will be taking questions at the end of the session. So please type them in the Q&A box and I'll get to them at the end. Please keep your session towards PhD applications in the US only. I will not be taking questions that are not on the topic. Thank you so much for joining in again, once again, and without any further delay, I'll hand it over to Daud. Daud, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So today my topic will be, like, as you all know, cracking the code, PhD applications demystified. So yeah, before I start my presentation, I just want to let you know that I've been on the other side of presentation, just like all of you. So and trying to get all the information when I was very passionate about, like, studying in USA, and Education USA has been very helpful to me in really trying to attain my dream. So so now I try to, like, also volunteer or help Education USA as well to maybe help more students achieve what they want to do. So I'll start with some introduction of mine, tell you a little bit more about me, and then I'll talk about the steps, how you can gain admission in USA, and then how to work on your applications, the application materials and all that, and funding for PhD applications. And also how to fund your PhD degree as well. So I'll talk about all those aspects, and when you have questions, you can either write in the chat box, and also we will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. So my name is Daud Nosham, and I'm originally from Lahore, Pakistan, and born and raised in Lahore, and got my education there in Lahore as well. Uh, uh, Got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in 2017 from UT Lahore, being one of the most prestigious engineering universities in Pakistan. And after I completed my degree, I worked as generator maintenance engineer and mechanical projects engineer, actually inside the former Christian college, very close to Prometric Center and Education USA office in Lahore as well. So I had this opportunity to really, my office was very close to the the Education USA office, and I registered for the same Education USA advising, and I was assigned an advisor and tried to get info from uh, uh, my advisor was Mariam at that time, and she would help me with all the application materials and all the steps which I'm going to talk about today with you as well. So I would encourage you to get connected with Education USA and to if you want to know more steps as well. So with my background, after I completed my bachelor's degree, I was always very excited to pursue higher education, especially in USA. So I tried and applied to so many places. Initially without much guidance and not really successful with my applications, and with time I tried to work harder and then try to figure out all the application materials more in a robust manner and then really work on them in a better way and with the right guidance, and then I was able to achieve it. So here in USA, I came for my PhD, got my master's degree in architectural engineering from University of Nebraska in 2024, and currently I'm a PhD candidate in architectural engineering, and I'm specializing in building mechanical systems. I'm very close to completing my PhD program, so I'm also working on my OPT at a national lab in US. So that's pretty much about me. And I will talk a little bit about what I'm going to present in this presentation. Uh, First of all, how to search for programs, then what are the usual application requirements and what's the application process. And then I'll also talk about how you should work step by step on preparing your documents, and then the one of the very important part of your whole application, which is statement of purpose. And I think you should be spending a significant amount of your time really improving that statement of purpose, making sure it aligns very well with your research objectives and what you want to do. It gives a very good picture of who you are as a person and what are your aims and objectives, and where do you see yourself in like long run and all that. So it should cover really comprehensively about you, and should not be boring either. So so I'll talk about how to create a statement of purpose and what things you should think about when you are creating your statement of purpose. And the second most important part of your application are recommendation letters. If written properly, if you get the right professors and you work correctly on it, then recommendation letters should reinforce what you have stated in your statement of purpose. So basically, if you're trying to tell some professor that this is the research area I'm interested in, then your recommendation letters from your professors should ideally be closer to what you have done. If they're not, they should at least explain what kind of research skill set you have, what tools you know. I will talk more about the recommendation letters as well in the later part of the presentation. And then I'll talk about how to gain funding, how much funding is required to live comfortably in US, and where do you actually all spend all that money? Can you save some money? I think that's one of the questions a lot of students want to know. How would they really fund their study? Because studying in USA is very expensive. So you need to make sure you know your funding options. And in the last portion, I'll get some questions. So the first thing is, which program should I apply to? So this is the very first question one should ask yourself. Which program should I apply to? Does it have to be the same as my undergraduate degree? So the program which you apply to does not really have to be the very same as your undergraduate degree. I got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. I worked in construction. I had a much more better specialization within like experience in building industry domain. So I pursued a PhD in architectural engineering. So, but the thing is, although sometimes the majors, the name of the degrees might be different, but the content could be similar. So you need to make sure that you are trying to find what you really want to do and the domain in which you already have experience. For example, if I am a mechanical engineer and I've worked in buildings, so I try to pursue a specialization within architectural engineering. They teach a lot of specializations within architectural engineering, which could be electrical systems, mechanical systems, and acoustics, lighting. So I was a mechanical engineer and I tried to find a specialization within architectural engineering program that provides me the same knowledge as like building mechanical engineering domain. So if you have the right background to get into that degree, and if you can explain well that this is what you want to do and this is what you have done that aligns with your what you want to do in the future, then even changing majors in Pakistan, I think it's kind of considered not that great to change majors, but in US, it happens so often. So you really need to just have a motivation to sometimes pursue a program which is closely related but not exactly your major. Or sometimes people change their majors completely. So it just depends. So both are acceptable. And if I thinking about which program should I apply to, so uh, in order to answer this question, you have to ask yourself that I think the first thing you should think about what subjects you studied in your bachelor degree interested you most and what do you like about them, and usually something you want to get specialized into comes from what you were good at in your undergraduate degree. So just try to think about that, and whatever area that was, or sometimes it has it's the experience. For example, you worked in the industry like me and got interested in some area which you were good at, and you have a lot of experience in, then you can try to pursue that program. um, a little out of context, but just a very common question asked by many students. They ask me whether I have a few years gap after my undergraduate degree, can I still apply for a PhD? So when you look at all the PhD application requirements, which I'll go to in the next slide, uh, there's no such thing as a gap mentioned there. So you just really have to tell them what you did during that time and explain that, for example, you did a job which was relevant. So that is actually a plus for you for your application, because that shows that you are committed and you worked in your area and you got more experience. So, and it does not really have to be research experience. It could be work experience, which is full-time work experience, but at least relevant to that. Uh, some students also do irrelevant jobs as well. I recommend not doing that, but just in case if you have done a job which is not relevant to your major and now you want to pursue specialization in your major, then what I would recommend is try to emphasize on the skill set you have gained from the job. That skill set doesn't necessarily have to be the very same required to perform on that on your in your major, but you can focus on maybe soft skills you gained or presentation skills you gained, or sometimes it could be data analysis skills or other types of skills that you have gained that could indirectly help in your master's or PhD studies. So so for the first question, the answer is basically you have to figure out what you really like and then choose a program based on that. And that kind of answers your second question as well, that how to know if it's the right program for me. So you really have to be able to enjoy that program. If you enjoy that area, then I think that should be the right program for you. And then how to find a prospective supervisor. For that, most often you need to search for your the area of interest you have. For example, if I'm interested in mechanical engineering in buildings, then I what I did, I would try to search online the programs offered within mechanical engineering or specializations offered which are closer to mechanical engineering or building mechanical engineering or architectural engineering. So first step is to try to find the program, and sometimes go to the program webpage and try to find what faculty are working there, and open up the faculty web pages and see what faculty profiles and what kind of research they are doing. Because when you are applying for a PhD especially, you are actually applying for a research program. So it's not just the coursework. Coursework is a small part of it, or in US it could still be a big part of it, but the focus is always the research. So and your funding comes through the research project most of the time as well. So you need to make sure that you like the research you will be doing over there when you get there. It's not just about getting into the program, it's also about surviving the program as well. So try to find out professors who are working in a very similar area you have worked on already, or if you are interested in that specific area, try to write an email and explain that what are you interested about, what are you passionate about, what kind of experience you have, what kind of tools, softwares you know, and talk all about, and not maybe never write an email that is too long for a professor to read. Professors are usually very, very busy and they have a lot of responsibilities. So they try to read emails which are very comprehensive, but at the same time, they are not very long. So maybe two paragraphs or something, that should be a good size. And I know I'm talking about a lot of things. I'll try to keep my direction straight, talk about application materials, but these things are still relevant. So I'll talk a little bit about this as well. So another question that is very commonly asked is, does the university ranking matter? Um, I would say that it does not. Usually, in USA, all the universities are very good, and they have. I think what matters. The question should be phrased like, "Does the research group matters?" I think that could be a better question, because when you are getting into a PhD program, you are getting together with the research group, and you need to make sure there is an alignment of interests. So whatever the professor is doing, you should be able to understand what he's doing, and you should be able to like what he's doing, and also would you be able to like that in the long run? So, and also what kind of group they have, uh, is the what kind of bonding you can develop with the professor in the long run? Because PhD is a very long go. If you are planning to, like in USA, PhD usually takes like 4 to 7 years. So it's a long commitment. So if you are stuck with a person that that is not very well aligned with your interests, whose interests are different, so basically you might not like the work, and that would lead to conflicts and all other stuff. So a lot of students have to go through that when they come here. So try to make sure you are trying to find the right fit, and then also you should be able to get well with the professor. But this is, I think, the step two to see whether how well you can align with the professor. Step one is to really find a prospective supervisor and convince him or her that you are able to do that research and you have an inclination of interest and alignment of interest with him. So the usual application requirements for graduate applications, which involves both master's and PhD applications, are an application form from the university. You need to have all your prior degrees and transcripts from your bachelor's, master's. Sometimes it is also possible in US to get uh, admission into a PhD program after a bachelor's degree without doing a master's. And that's basically what I did. It's a little less common and a little more competitive, but it is possible. So in that case, you only need a bachelor's degree and transcript. So, but not all universities allow it. Sometimes they don't state it that you can get it in with a bachelor's degree. So you just need to contact the admissions department first, or maybe the academic department, and ask them that you are interested to do a PhD. If you are, and tell them that this is your research experience. Usually getting into a PhD with a bachelor's degree only requires more experience in research, which is demonstrated by research publications or a thesis directly relevant to the area of interest of the professor, which he's doing right now. So, and also requires a very good GPA. 3 GPA is like a bare minimum, but usually for a master's degree, they do like accept sometimes less than 3 as well. You need to contact them. For a PhD, also usually the bare minimum is 3 GPA in both bachelor's and master's degree. But for a direct PhD, oftentimes that is 3.7. But uh, But you can always try. Sometimes if you have a very good research alignment, I'm emphasizing every time on the research alignment, because that is, I think, the most important part. If the professor is convinced that you have the required skill set, you know the required tools for data analysis or research, and you know what you are going to do, then I think that is what matters the most. So then sometimes these other conditions could be relaxed by the university itself. So, but in general, it's a 3 GPA minimum recommended. um, then you need to have standardized test scores, either a GRE or GMAT, depending upon what the university department requires. And on IELTS or TOEFL, TOEFL is usually a more recommended test for applications in USA, especially if you were applying for Fulbrighters. But I did IELTS. IELTS is also a comparable IELTS score is also acceptable in almost all of the US universities. So you can do either. And there are some other tests which are acceptable as well. You need to check university's website or department on what kind of other tests they accept. Then statement of purpose, one of the most important part of application. I'll talk more about that, and then the recommendation letters. Uh, one very common question asked by so many students is that I do not have a research paper. Can I still apply for a PhD program? So the answer is yes. In USA, prior research experience is not a requirement for most of the programs. A lot of the programs just require you all the above I mentioned, like up to 3 recommendation letters. They do not require research publications, and most of them don't require research proposals. Maybe some programs require a research proposal as a compulsory part of application, but I think most of the programs do not require either a writing sample, they do not require research proposal, and do not require research publications. And when I got into my PhD program, I did not have any publication. I did not have any research proposal. I did not know how to create a research proposal. That's all I learned, because it's a PhD degree. They are supposed to teach you research and how to do research and make you an independent researcher. So that all these things I learned when I came into the PhD program, not before coming to the PhD program. So I see a lot of students really not trying to apply into a place just because they think that they don't have prior research, or they don't know how to create research proposal. And they would tell me that I'm trying to create my research proposal, I want to apply into USA. And then I have to tell them that you should uh, maybe try to start with the step one, which is read application requirements. And most of the US universities do not require research statements or research proposals publications. So just don't waste your time, I would say, on the materials which are not even required. Just make sure you uh, fill out all the things. You can write your question, and I can take your question in the end, Sami. And then preparing documents. This is also another step you need to make sure that you are following through. Usually when you're applying, you worked on like degree attestation from HEC, and also make sure you take your tests, IELTS and GRE, and then sometimes you have to send score reports for GRE as well. That costs some money. So you need to at least plan some funding for the applying process, because when I was applying, maybe in Pakistani rupees, you might maybe a lakh or two, maybe if you're depending on how many universities are you applying to. I think you should work with your Education USA advisor to really create a plan that how many universities you should target. In usual, there should be at least 6 to 8 universities in 1 year if you want to make sure that you get your funding uh, and not waste too many years. One bad thing I did is I yeah, and I think that's the case with many of the Pakistani students. If you're since because of the exchange rate and everything, as you're a student at that time and you're applying for PhD or master application, if you're not earning, then coming up with like 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees, it's also a challenge, which was for me as well. So I would apply to 2 universities, 3 universities, and not really get it. So it took me a lot of time to really crack it. So if I would suggest, if you can, try to apply to more universities in just the same year. But before applying, make sure you understand all the things I'm talking about and you really work on them. Have someone look at your documents and make sure that you have a strong application, and then put your spendings into that, and not just don't just go blind and try to apply to 8 universities that I'll get one funding. If you are not applying with the correct methodology, you might not get funding anywhere. So make sure at least you're working hard with this application process. It is hectic and it requires time and effort, but once it works out, it's worth way much more. So just I would say try to invest time on all the application materials. I want to talk a little more on statement of purpose and then recommendation letters in the next slide. So I have outlined some questions. I can share these slides later on after this presentation. So if you want to create your statement of purpose for the very first time, just answering all these questions would help you create your very first draft. So I created these questions with thinking, because whenever I would be required to write statement of purpose, I would always be confused what to answer, and I try to search what usually universities are asking you to write. Sometimes they ask you 3, 4, 5 questions, and then I try to make it more comprehensive and try to create a flow in it, and so that one thing aligns with the other thing. So I try to write these questions, and I hope hopefully once you are able to answer all these questions, you should have a good first draft. And I would be willing to help you as well. And I think Education USA advisors also do the same thing as well. You can connect with them and then email them your first SOP draft, and then they should be able to help you improve it and get to the best possible one. So first of all, talk about who you are, your academic background, and why did you choose what you're doing. For example, if you're doing a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, try to explain a little bit why you're doing that. And usually a lot of students start with like, I like this as a child. Um, that's a very common way of starting it. I would recommend maybe not talking too much about being a child. Maybe try starting a little bit from, maybe if you want to go a little more back, just high school or school, and then or maybe not talking more in many sentences about your childhood. Try to talk really about what you have studied in your bachelor's degree, what kind of projects you did in your bachelor's degree, that's your background, and how did you really get to where you are right now. If you are completing your bachelor's degree, what were kind of your challenges and what was your journey, and then try to talk about what specific area within your domain you are interested in. For example, if I'm from mechanical engineering, it is a very broad domain, and for research you always have to get into very much deeper state and talk about what specific area within mechanical engineering I'm interested in. So, for example, if within mechanical engineering there are heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, there could be engine design, renewable energy, so many areas. Then I would talk about that I'm interested in heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems, especially in educational buildings. And even heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems are a broad area. So you try to narrow it down to a specific domain and talk about that. If you've done some project in that domain, highlight that, and then also see. At the stage of writing your SOP, you could already be looking at professor's website as well. So try to see that if there is an alignment of that research area with the professor as well. One thing you should avoid is not really try to create a SOP based on the professor's interest. I would suggest create your SOP based on your own interest first, and then try to find a professor related to your interests. So basically, that way you are not phrasing your interest in a way the professor wants to listen, but you are phrasing it in a way that what you originally are and what you originally like, because this is going to be a long run again. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So try to make sure that you spend enough time into your applications, and because you are going to spend much more time in a PhD. So make sure once you get into a PhD, you are able to survive that. And then a question you need to ask yourself is that did you find a university department or a professor in your area? How did you find about that university? What do you think the university lab is a good match for you? So these are the questions you need to answer yourself as well, and make sure you answer them like deep enough, and so that professor can know when they read your statement of purpose that how did you find the university department. It shouldn't be, you shouldn't be telling them that your university is ranked fifth in the world, that's why I want to come to the. They already know that their universities, for example, if someone already knows that their university is ranked fifth in the world, why would telling them that thing somehow impress them? It would not. You have to tell them that I have done research in mechanical systems, and then this kind of mechanical systems I have most experience with, or I have done similar projects to this thing. This is not exactly the same work as yours, but these are the skill sets I've learned during this time, and I can apply these skill sets in your area over this lab in this lab, and that should help your department as I would be able to continue on my PhD if there are similar projects, research projects as my background. So this is the kind of answer you should be giving them, so they know that you are really interested and you also know what you're talking about. Uh, then then also talk about, I kind of answered this question as well, that because these are very closely related, but you need to make sure that you answer all these questions separately. What motivated you to choose a specific research area? Sometimes this could be just a class project, a small that projects. A lot of time when I talk about class projects, a lot of students tell me, oh, they never did these class projects, and that's, I think that's never true, because we never really keep track of it. Every class you take that has kind of very small projects, and when you're applying for these positions, these small things matter. These are not the things you should just let go. For example, I took a course and we did a very small project on a software called Ali analysis program that calculates the like uh, uh, heating load of a cafeteria. So I tried to talk about that software when I was applying for my PhD position, and I just told them that I calculated this heating load, and that was the heating load, and then I did it alone. That was an independent project. So that's something that is relevant. So just try to, even this, you feel that it's a very small project, try to make sure and remember what you have done in your classes and relate it with your PhD research or prospective research area. Then also talk about where will this research will lead you. So basically, you start with your background and tell them that this is how you came to this point, and this is what you're interested in. This is what you want to do. And then you have to make sure that you tell them that where this will lead you in the future. So you need to really have a long term plan. So not just a long term, also you need to talk about, these are my next questions as well. So talk about that, what you wish to achieve in the short term, and then how these short term plans would lead to you to a long term, to your long term plan, which could be being a researcher at a national lab, or be a professor at a US university, or professor in a university in Pakistan, or do a leadership role in your domain or something like that. So uh, the most important thing is all these questions should fit in to each other like a chain. One should connect with the other one, the other one should connect with the third one. Once the chain is complete, you will have a very good sap. So if you have all these ideas dispersed around each other and not really connecting to each other, so then that is very distracted sap. So when we use the term what is a strong sap and what is a very weak sap, I think that is one of the very big factor that kind of helps the reviewer decide what is strong or what is weak. A strong SOP will talk about all your skill sets, your background, what you want to do in future, what are your short-term, long-term plans, how do you think your research matches with the professor's research, what projects you did, and what will you do in the long run. If all these connect, then your recipe is a very good recipe. So try to answer all these questions, then you should have your first draft, and then Education USA advisor or I myself can help you improve that SOP in future. Then the next very important part of your application is recommendation letters. So you need to understand from the reviewer's point of view that why they required recommendation letters in the first place. So basically, if you want to really crack PhD applications, you need to know what's the purpose of recommendation letters. Then once you understand the purpose is to get recommendation from another esteemed professor or another person who has experience in your domain and who has already supervised you, and let them comment on what you can do, what kind of skill set you have, or if you came across a problem, how did you tackle that problem? How did you solve that problem? What kind of research tools you have, or this not necessarily research tools, other tools you know to solve a problem. So you really need to talk about the person really needs to talk about all these things in their recommendation letter. A very common thing students do is go to their professor, tell them that I need a recommendation letter, and that the professor would be busy in even in Pakistan. So they would just write a very common generic letter. He's a very good, obedient student and very hardworking, motivated. And these are kind of words, which is a very bad recommendation letter, or probably the worst recommendation letter you can get. Because the first thing in such kind of letter, you are using all generic words which anyone without any domain knowledge can write. For example, you are writing, he's a very good person, he's very motivated, he tackles challenges very well. This is no one needs even this much amount of domain knowledge to really talk about all this kind of letter. So what I think you should do is really talk very specifically about what you have done. So before I tell you what to do, let me tell you another thing what not to do. Then the second thing is a lot of students just write. I would highly recommend. Actually, they would tell the professor to write it. I would highly recommend you for the program, and you never really mention the name of the program you're applying to because you want to use the same letter at multiple places, and because I know that's the common trend, and that is where the wrong starts. So you should never write this generic sentence that I would highly recommend you for this program. He's a very excellent student. Don't make it a generic. So then the next question student asks that professors are busy, they don't write our letters. So what I usually suggest is, and that is not a bad way to do it. This is a very acceptable way everywhere in the world that you write your recommendation letter yourself. You know about yourself, you create your first draft on professor's behalf and send that draft to the professor on your on your best honest evaluation, and then send that letter to the professor and request them, can you please write a letter from me based on for this program, and write the name of the university you want to apply to, write the name of the program you want to apply to, make it very specific to the research you want to do in USA, and try to create a link between them. Also mention the kind of project you did with that professor. That all should be genuine. And once you send that draft letter to the professor, request them to please make all the changes they want to as they feel. So a lot of times professors would review that letter in Pakistan, and they would be very quick in submitting your recommendation because you already sent them a draft. But if you are expecting them to write the whole letter, they would not write you a strong recommendation letter. So make sure you create a good draft, send them, and let them read and let them edit it, whatever they want to do. Don't make it a PDF, just send it that as a Word file. So they have if they feel that you are talking about a certain skill set you don't have, they can always delete it. But once they accept it and endorse it and send it through their email, this means that they already acknowledged what you are doing. And this is not the wrong way, this is the correct way. I often do it even here in US. Sending a draft letter is always the good way to really let other person uh, create. That's what ChatGPT does as well. Like, don't use ChatGPT for recommendation letters, because then you would be in trouble. Because yeah, that brings me to this point as well. Do not use ChatGPT for statement of purpose or recommendation letters. uh, Make sure you create your own statement of purpose. Make sure you create your own recommendation letters. If you really want to improve the grammar or tweak the sentences a little bit, I think that you can use with Grammarly or other AI softwares, but don't write the whole letter using AI. So, because a lot of universities have their plagiarism check systems in their online application system, and once that goes through plagiarism, if that letter is written by AI and not endorsed by that, it's written by AI, then your application could be rejected right away. Or even if you are accepted and they find out later in 2 years later, 3 years later that you had a plagiarized letter, then you might still be kicked out of the program. There is a possibility. So don't do that. Just make sure you write your own draft, send that to professor, let them review, and then that way things would roll quicker. And oftentimes students ask that I am writing this letter very generically, so I can use to multiple universities, which I already talked about. But once you create your own draft, then usually if you request the professor multiple times as well, they would be willing to do that because they already have a draft. And sometimes even if you have trouble with these drafts being signed by the professor, then you just need to request them. Everyone goes through this phase, and you really have to just put your effort requesting professors or trying. And also make sure you give them enough time to really review that and also send them, because I understand professors in Pakistan, they are also busy as well. Everyone has their own life. So don't send your recommendation letters on the last day to the professor that I'm getting late, my professor's application is due tomorrow. Don't submit any application in haste. Make sure you give enough time to submit all the applications, and you put enough effort into each part of the applications. Because I can assure you that if you are not putting the right amount of effort into the application process, then you might not really get the opportunity. Yeah, that's the sad part, but I have to tell you that it's not. A lot of times students think that sometimes I might get in luck and then they will accept me. That would not happen, because there's a committee sitting on the other end who really reviews and opens up all the applications, and they spend very small amount of time on each application. So they want to make sure that they can review quickly from through the application. And if you have a good application, they would be able to catch that in maybe a 30 second, in a minute or so. But if you don't, they will just go to the next application, because there are so many people applying into like US universities. So make sure you put your effort. It's not by luck, it's by hard work. So make sure you are not trying to get things in the wrong way. So then, funding, one very important question. I think I still have more time. Yeah, I'll try to go through this a little quicker, but I think this is a very interesting question. A lot of students asked. When I was in your shoes, then a lot of time this is the question usually not answered as well in many places. But hopefully I will try to answer this question, that how to get funding and how much funding is enough. And a lot of students are also thinking about saving money in PhD. Actually, you should probably not be thinking that, but I still talk a little bit more on this. So, how to get funding? Usually, you try to contact your graduate chair. If different universities have different processes, sometimes that comes through graduate chair, and sometimes, most of the times, actually, it comes from the professor you are conducting your research with. So once you contact your professor, write an email to them and tell them that this is what I want to do and all everything, and then tell them that would you be willing to advise me. So for a PhD, asking this question is enough. That would you be willing to advise me? Once you ask that question, if the professor is willing to advise you, and usually they're only willing to advise you if they have funding. If they don't have funding, they will tell you that I can't, I don't have funding. So it's an indirect question to ask the professor, will you have funding to support me? So what does the funding cover in US? It covers your full tuition fee, and then it also covers most of the portion of your health insurance premium, and then they also provide you a stipend or a salary. So getting a funding could be a first step or a last step. It could be a first step if you contact the professor first, and then if your things are rolling, then usually the professor funds you. Or if you're going through the more common route, which is like putting the application to the university first and then wait for the funding offer letters, then that could funding could be something that would be coming in the end. But you will have funding either way before the start of the program. So the priority deadlines for funding are, most of the funding comes through in fall, but it could be spring as well. So you can apply for both priority deadlines. So what does the funding cover? That I already talked about. And yes, you can live comfortably with the amount of funding in most of the states, because the fundings are not same in all the states because the living expenses are different. So these are kind of adjusted with that. But yes, it's enough for one person to live comfortably. I've seen some people living with their spouses as well, and sometimes with one child as well. It gets tighter, but it is possible. Can I save money? Maybe if you're single, then you can save some money as well. So the total of your expenses will come from your rent, utilities, food, clothing, Wi-Fi, phone. If you buy a car, and you will be paying car insurance, and then you will also have to pay fuel, and all of that is doable with a PhD stipend. So now let's talk about some rough maths. Uh, so usually, in general, if you're given $2,500 per month, I live in Nebraska. That's kind of a rate here. Somewhere from 2,300 to 2,500, $2,600. It could be a little higher, a little lower as well. So you usually pay your rent, which is like $600 a month, utilities, which is 200 a month, food around 400 a month, and then you paid some taxes, which is like 350 a month, and then student fees, which is about 350. Car insurance, if you have car, fuel, then that's about $200 a month, and some miscellaneous expenses. So it totals to around $2,200, and if you are being paid 2,500, you'll save a little bit as well. So for one person, you can really live comfortably in US based with this funding. So some more questions. I think I will end these questions. Quickly go through these questions and answer them a little bit. So a lot of students ask this question: my GPA is low. Can I get admission with full funding? My GPA is 3.5, but I cannot do GRE. So basically, the answer to first question is yes. You can get admission with full funding with lower GPA. I myself did not have a stellar GPA when I applied. So I actually had a 2.9 GPA out of 4 when I got a direct PhD admission letter. So this is very less common because usually for direct PhD you need a 3.7-ish something. But I had experience within my own domain. I worked 4 years before really getting into the PhD program, and uh, uh, I would really emphasize that it's not just GPA, it's the whole application package. That's why we are having this presentation. This the intent of this presentation, that every point in your application package is very important. Your recommendation letters, your statement of purpose, because that really gives a sense of the whole personality. Then if you're then usually you are able to convince a professor or the department that you can survive the program. And um, so my GPA is 3.5, but I cannot do GRE. In that case, you cannot, because most of the programs, if the program you want to get into requires a GRE, then you have to do GRE. You cannot get around that. So my BS and MS degree is in a different field from what I want to pursue. Can I get admission in a different PhD program? Yes, that I already answered this one. So should I take IELTS or TOEFL? IELTS or TOEFL, both are uh, acceptable tests in US. Can I get admission in US university with full funding without IELTS and GRE? This is a question also asked by so many students, and I always try to tell them, do GRE and IELTS. Why? Because there are some universities which might remit IELTS, which might also remit GRE. But then out of all these 4,000 universities, you are just applying to maybe 200 universities. So I would highly recommend that you do GRE and IELTS. And then can you send me a list of universities for my program offering full scholarships? That's also a question. Actually, a lot of students have asked me in the past. That's why I put it here. So please don't ask other people to send you a list of universities. Do you have internet? There's so many universities. Just try to pull up state universities, private universities, whatever kind of university you want to look for, and you should be able to get information. And difference between personal statement, motivation letter, statement of purpose. In US, usually they require statement of purpose. Sometimes they also require personal statement as well. But I talked about statement of purpose. They are all similar of the similar purpose. In Europe, usually they require, I think they call it motivation letter, but I think they all serve the same purpose. The intent of this presentation is not really talk about differences between them, so I would stop at this. But if you have more questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Daud, for such a detailed presentation. I'm sure the attendees learned a lot. We do have a lot
You're
of
welcome.
questions coming in, so let's dive into them.
Mhm.
The first question is, can we directly apply for PhD without contacting professors and still have chances to get admissions and secure assistantships?
Actually, yes, you can, uh, because the original method of application is really applied to the program directly. But for PhD, I would still advise you, if you can find a professor who is working in an area related to your research, maybe try to contact them, because once you apply, your application will go to the admission committee. And if you already have a professor willing to supervise you sitting in that admission committee, then your chances are always higher. But some universities will let you contact professor beforehand, and they will already tell you that, oh, I'm willing to accept you. But some universities may not. But I think most of the universities are okay with even contacting professors beforehand.
Thank you for that. I know you answered this already, but this is a very common question. So if you could please get into some detail if possible. Is there any difference between SOP and personal statement? As per my research, personal statement is about your personal story / life journey, while SOP is inclined towards research, profile, technical details, and all that. SOP has nothing to
Yeah.
do with your personal life stuff. Is that true?
Yeah, I think you answered pretty much in your own question that statement of purpose is basically focused more on what you really want to do, and many of the questions I really enlisted. Personal statement focuses more on your personal side, uh, rather than what you really want to do, rather than the purpose. So some universities, just a very few, they sometimes require both from you. So if they require a personal statement, you'll talk more about how your personal skills, personal a set of knowledge that you've gained that can help you. But I think the purpose of both is pretty much the same. Even in personal statement, the focus could be more personal, but that they're basically asking you the same thing: how you could be a good applicant for this position.
Thank you. Next question is it true that there are less seats available for PhD for spring admissions in most of US universities?
So I think it all usually the more common way is to apply into a fall admission term, but I think the funding could come at any time. So you could be even approaching a professor, but he might not have or she might not have funding in fall. That might come in spring. So it really depends. I would usually suggest you, if you are applying the usual route, which is filling in the applications and then waiting for your results, then that for that you should maybe try to emphasize fall term more. But if you're contacting professor and really trying to get if they have funding or not, I think it really depends. When the professor gets the funding, it's a matter of luck for you as well.
Thank you. Can you bring your dependents, such as your wife and kids, on your visa?
You can on F2 visa, and I talked a little bit about that. Usually it's a little difficult to survive. Not impossible, but you have a stipend for one person to live very comfortably. But if you have dependents, then the dependents are not allowed to work in US, so you really have to make ends meet to be able to survive. But it's
Thank
doable.
you. Okay, can an LOR be more than one page, or do you have to stick to like a one page LOR?
So I personally like recommendation letters which are not longer than 1 page, because it's a recommendation. You should, because one of the skills that you should also show is that how to keep your letter comprehensive, but at the same time it should be concise, so the reader does not have to spend too much time in that.
Thank you. Okay. The next question is how some places are GRE optional when it comes to funding. How strongly would you recommend somebody take the GRE, especially with somebody who has funding issues?
I think you should take GRE, but if it's optional, then I don't think it matters. You just need to show all the required. I personally always focus on what's required and try to give your best, whatever is required, and just leave the option. But in general, if you want to broaden your horizons, I would suggest you do the GRE.
Thank you. Okay. Other than the program's funding, should one apply for funding via scholarships, grants, etc.? Are these options even available for international students?
I'm not sure what kind of external grants are being asked in the question, but usually whatever kind of external grants come when you are in USA, they are usually for the citizens. So there are some grants that could come from for international students, but that's usually very unlikely. So try to make sure that you either secure a fellowship or an assistantship before you get to USA.
Thank you. Does it matter if the person writing an LLR is not an assistant or a professor and is just a lecturer?
I don't think the designation of that person matters. It's more about how that letter of recommendation is aligned with yours, with your work. I personally used some recommendation letters from my work. One was my supervisor. He was not a professor, not even a lecturer. He was more like he was an engineer, but he was supervising me. So I think it matters more how well they are able to comment on your skill set or what you have done or what kind of personality you are as a professional.
Thank you. Another student is asking that they have a bachelor's degree. They had a CGPA of 3.82, GRE of 325, and TOEFL of 111. But they are asking how can they compensate for their lack of research experience slash publications? What would you recommend?
So, as I kind of talked about it, that you don't really need to compensate about that because that's not even a requirement. So just be confident about it, write a good SOP and all the things which are required. I talked about all those. Make sure you really work on all these things, all three recommendation letters very well, and align them with your SOP and answer all the questions in your SOP. And your GRE is very good. Your other things are good. You should be able to get admission into the program.
And lastly, how early do you think students should start working on their PhD applications?
Sorry.
How early do you think a student, a potential PhD applicant, should start working on their application?
Oh, okay. So it really depends. If you're trying to target a fall term, I think you should look at the priority deadline. If that's, for example, if that's December 15th, so you need to make sure you have enough time to really take your IELTS. You already have your GRE. A lot of times students just put it at the end, so don't do that. Try to do that maybe 6 months early or something. And then once you have these two, you need a lot of time, really, maybe multiple months to really create a good SOP. You can't do that in a week or a day because you need to go through it. Every time you read it again, you will find that it needs more improvement. So make sure you have ample time to work on your statement of purpose recommendation letters. So maybe at least work 3 months or so on your application package, and then you should be good to apply.
Thank you so much, Daud, for your time. With that, we've reached the end of our time. It was incredibly helpful. I'm sure this for the audience, but it was really, it was a good learning experience for me as well as an advisor.
Mhm.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
very much.
much. We have the recording available for those of you who joined late. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and Daud, you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care. Bye bye.